Do you know what the candles on a birthday party are all about? In ancient Europe, when the winters were so bad that people used to go into literal hibernation to keep themselves warm in whatever way they had, and when they would come out, they would count the dead. Did you know that? They would count the dead. And in order to celebrate the fact that those who are alive have passed through the winter and survived and fought nature, which means nature came to kill us in the form of cold, and because we fought nature and we stayed alive, now we need to defy it by blowing out candles. So they would put how many ever candles of their age and blow them out to show we can defy it. It's something that we believe is rooted in the medieval Europe, and it comes with its own satanic origins and so on. But people today say, what's wrong? What's wrong? I'm blowing the candles. But you don't realize it's like an act of worship of the pagans. And we're saying, and people have made it a culture and a tradition. The same applies to so many other things.
There are other reasons why they're permitted. Many of the things that is done on birthday, it is against the teaching of Islam. If you go back to the history of the birthday cake, how did it originate? We come to know it is from the time of the Greeks. And at that time, in the olden days, they made cake which was honey cake, which was round in shape, to resemble a moon for worshipping moon god. It was round honey cake resembling a moon, and they put candles on it. So this was in reverence to the moon god. Then we have, if you read history, we come to know that in Germany, the bakery in 15th century, they used to bake cakes. It became common. Then you have in the Roman history and so on and so forth.
But when it comes to birthdays, we hear from a lot of people that this is not a religious celebration. This is something that is just a cultural celebration. And some people say, well, invented in Europe, and some people in other areas. But we need to research this issue. The earliest mention I could find for celebration of birthdays is actually in the Torah, which is called the Old Testament, and which is currently a part of the Bible as it is printed today. So before I mention it, when I heard about this, I thought maybe they had a proof from Musa alayhi salam or Ibrahim alayhi salam, so it would be a proof for us. But in fact, when we look at Genesis 40 verse 20, we find that now it came to pass on the third day, which was the Pharaoh's birthday, and he made a feast for all his servants. So who started the tradition of birthdays, as far as we can find in historic records, is the Pharaohs, not the Anbiya, not Ibrahim alayhi salam, not Musa alayhi salam. In fact, in the Old Testament, the Torah, or the New Testament, the Injil, or the Quran, or the Zabur, we don't find a single prophet or a pious man celebrating their birthdays, only the wicked. But you could say, okay, that was something in the past, and that's how it started, but it's not a religious thing today. We don't celebrate it religiously. But then I'm going to ask you, what do you do on birthdays? You get cakes, and you put candles, and you light them, and you make wishes, and you blow them out. So where did all that come from? And I'm not going to guess at it. The National Geographic Society, in a research and a book that they have published called An Uncommon History of Common Things. And this is not from my perspective. These are published books you can look up yourself. When they talk about birthdays and birthday cakes, they say that ancient Greek, the pagans, idol worshippers, the ancient Greek, baked round or moon-shaped honey cakes. And they were as a tribute, a religious ritual, a tribute to Artemis, the moon goddess. This was a religious practice, and the candles were lit so the moon glow can be imitated in the ritual that they did for Artemis, the moon goddess, a Greek pagan ritual. And this is where we find that lighting candles, blowing them out, making wishes, this was a way of ibadah for them. And that's why they would say, don't tell anybody about your wish, because this was a prayer they were making to a moon goddess. So when we look in history, what do we find? In reality, this was a pagan religious ritual, a worship that they did on their birthdays. They made cakes, they lit candles, and this is historically documented.
What if something that used to be from the deen of the non-Muslims, slowly over time, stopped to be from their deen and became something from their culture? This is the key point here, okay? Does the ruling, is it related to the origin, such that no matter what happens, we will go back to the origin? Or is the ruling related to how people perceive it, such that if it's ritual, it will be ritual, and if it is custom, it will be custom? Remember, rule number one was rituals are haram to imitate. That's rule number one, right? Well, what if it used to be a ritual, but it is now a custom and no longer a ritual? Okay, here is where we have two camps. Here is where we had two schools of thought. A well-known position, and this is the one that basically makes these celebrations haram, is that it doesn't matter how people view it, we go back to the origin. And if the origin is pagan, then the ritual will be pagan, even if it is no longer practiced as paganism. And this is the basis of which many celebrations are considered to be haram. And you will read this in any fatwa that makes it haram. They will go back to its origin. They'll look up some book. A lot of times it's not even true. Sometimes it might be true. It's irrelevant whether it's true or not. But the point is that the tahrim is based on its origin. And they say, what is the origin of birthdays? What is the origin of Nowruz? What is the origin of New Year's? What is the origin of this and that? And they will go and link it to something pagan. The famous fatwa you've all heard of, what is the origin of the ties? Even though this is a myth, the origin of the ties is not the cross, but still, the fatwa was given, and so it's still common in our days to hear it. The ties used to be a Christian symbol, and therefore it is haram because the origin is a Christian symbol. So they will link it to the origin. However, I respectfully disagree with that. And I say that it is very clear looking at the Sharia and at lived realities. And I'll explain. It is very clear. And in my mind, personally, it is crystal clear. And this is the position of, frankly, the majority of scholars of the world beyond one strand of Islam. There's one strand that is very hardcore on this, but the majority of scholars of the world beyond that strand, they don't view it this way. They say that what is considered to be a custom is a custom regardless of its origin being a ritual. You look at the niyyah, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. You look at the niyyah, and they actually bring the evidence of the hadith of Buwana. Remember this, the slaughter of the camel? They bring that back. There's an interesting point here. In one version, when the man comes and says to the Prophet, I want to slaughter a camel in Buwana, in one version, Ibn Majah, the Prophet ﷺ says, do you find something of jahiliyyah still in your heart in Buwana? And the man says, no. So the Prophet said, in that case, go to Buwana. Notice what he linked it to. Do you find some of the feelings of jahiliyyah? Do you still have that veneration? Is that something? Why Babuana? What is there? Is that something you're linking to Jahiliyyah? He said, no. In that case, then go. So, niyyah matters. Not that Buwana might have been a pagan land 1,000 years ago. The man did not feel any attachment religiously to Buwana. Do you have anything in your heart of Jahiliyyah? No? Okay, then go do it. This hadith is in Ibn Majah. And from this, I would say the majority of scholars beyond that one strand that thinks they're following Ibn Taymiyyah, but I don't think they're following Ibn Taymiyyah, that one strand, beyond that one strand, they basically say, we don't look at the origin 15,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. We look at the lived reality. And based on that, therefore, they say, if the people don't view this as being a ritual, and they view it as being a custom, then we will view it as being a custom and not a ritual. And this is, I would say, the lived experiential reality of human beings. Let us look at the issue of birthdays. Who in the world celebrates a birthday thinking of some type of paganism? Nobody. Even pagans who do pagan stuff don't do birthdays with the niyyah of paganism. They go to the woods and do whatever they do don't do birthdays. Rituals of paganism are gone. By the way, I don't even know if it is true, because to be brutally honest, a lot of times these fatwas, they find hodgepodge type of things and they bring them in. Academic studies need to be done that are a little bit more thorough. Is it really something that is 100% solely coming out of paganism? But even if it is, it doesn't change the fact that it is no longer done. So those scholars who say, let's look at the origin, they will also say, for example, you cannot buy Nike. Nike is haram. It's a well-known fatwa. Why is Nike haram according to this group? Because the guy who made Nike, they say Nike is haram. Why is Nike haram? Because that swoosh is the symbol of, it is the Greek god of victory. It is the Greek god of victory. Now, to believe that somebody is going to buy Nike to venerate the Greek god of victory and to put the god on his shoe to venerate it. I mean, you tell me, does this make sense to you? But see, this is again the problem of, Allah bless all of our ulama, but I have to say, see, these types of fatwas, unfortunately, what they do, they disconnect the masses from their ulama. This is the problem. They disconnect the masses from their ulama, and the fatwa is baseless. It's not based in academic training of Islam. Somebody's going to put a symbol of a god on his shoe to respect the god. What type? So that's their fatwa. They say, khalas, it comes from there. But you see, these same people that say wearing Nike is haram, these same groups of people, they will have no problems talking about the days of the week and the days of the month, which are all venerations of gods. Sunday is the sun god. Monday, the moon god. Thursday, the god of Thor, the Nordic god. Wednesday is Odin, the god of the Nordics. Woden is Wednesday. Every single day of the week, and this is the reality, look it up. The months as well. Every month, June, July, August, is veneration of somebody. It's veneration of a false god. And we are using this all the time. From their perspective, it should be haram to say Monday. But who says that? Because they can't. And so again, because we have to look at the reality of how the culture is done, not the origin. And again, there are rituals in every single religion that have faded out and become culture, without exception. And I'll give you an example from our own culture, is the Mehndi. Right? The Mehndi that happens in the weddings. Okay? And for the non-Desi folks here, it is mandatory in our culture. Wajib. No, fard in Hanafi. Fard. You cannot have, and this is something that Even the most practicing ultra-conservative, Deobandi, Salafi, Ash'ari, whatever, they will all do it. Doesn't matter. They will do the Mehndi. What is the Mehndi? It is a celebration where henna is put in elaborate designs on the body of the, and the hand and the face and the feet of the bride. Okay. Now, it is well known that the origin of the Mehndi is Vedic Hindu practices. It is well known, look this up, that the origin is to venerate the sun by drawing symbols of the sun. That's why these intricate things are done in the color of the sun, the yellow and whatnot, right? And the turmeric and all of this is done there. It is coming straight out of Vedic practices in ancient Hinduism. But even Hindus these days don't even do it with that. It's gone. And Bangladeshis have it as well, right? The Mehndi. And Nepalis and Pakistanis and Indians, we all are doing it. And we are Sikhs, Buddhists, Muslim, Hindu. It's all gone now. The ritual has lost its ritual meaning and has become something that is cultural. So the verdict will be based on the culture and not on the origin. Mehendis are halal. What happens in them might be haram, that's something else. But the Mehndi itself is halal. Okay? See, that's the point.